second round of the Comeup Xtreme Winch Challenge kicked off on a cold and clear Friday night on the Springgate property just south of the small township of Limbri in the Tamworth area of New South Wales. There were 11 purpose-built four-wheel drives, all fitted with winches capable of pulling these mighty machines out of the toughest gullies. But it doesn't all go according to plan, with Manny Cafanteris in the GQ Patrol breaking the winch rope. Not a good start to the night. Luckily, his navigator knows how to tie a good knot. Picking your line into the gully is important. Getting stuck on a rock is not ideal. Having to winch out of the gully is even worse, as Steve Howarth and Glenn Rogers found out. Another team to break a winch rope was John and Mick from the Blue Mountains Four-Wheel Drive Club. Unfortunately, Mick failed scouts and needed a lesson on knot tying from his driver.
Here we go again, right? Left over right, tuck it under, pull a bit, right over left.
Mick eventually tied the biggest knot he could and they winched to the top. Rod and Russell Rathbone in the Toyota FJ40 picked a pretty ordinary line on the second of the winch climbs and struggled for traction. A broken front axle and no rear drive would see them fail to finish the stage. They'll have an extremely busy night trying to fix it.
Unless I can magically turn a tail shaft up from somewhere, we won't be racing in the morning. So I can't get the axle shaft out of this because I broke the axle shaft in here as well.
But there were plenty of extreme winch trucks that did make the climbs out of the gullies, and they made them all look too simple. Let's check it out. There's another 5 stages tomorrow, so anything can happen. It's day 2 of the Comeup Xtreme Winch Challenge series, and with a decent crowd of people gathered to watch the action, it was straight into it. The first stage for the morning included traversing the gully a few times and winching over Mother Nature's strategically placed log. Rod Rathbone and Russell Rathbone were back after travelling into Tamworth and welding up a new tail shaft for the FJ40. They were back in the game. The biggest drama for Pete Bannister and Tim Simpson in the Mav was the navigator's door. It just wouldn't stay closed and was flapping around in the breeze for the entire stage. Josh Rathbone was struggling with the winch on Kevin Gorick's 80 series, eventually freeing the rope and winching over the log. John Adamson and Mick Ramiri from the Blue Mountains Four-Wheel Drive Club were quickly over the log. But an electrical fire at the end of the stage was extinguished by the marshals and some repairs would be needed.
Electrical fire, there's just something's up out, it's alright, we've got it out.
It obviously didn't affect the car. The very next stage they drove the winch section. Very impressive for the 60 series. Most needed to winch the gnarly hill, including Steve Reed in the 100 series Land Cruiser. The rocks providing a real challenge and some tricky manoeuvring. The angle of this winch hill is very misleading until you see it from side on. Matt Holgate and Isaac James in the GU Patrol made it look simple winching to the top of this very rocky hill. Phil Bell and Ian Hughes were also close to climbing the hill unassisted, but didn't quite make it to the top. They needed to winch the final stretch. As the afternoon drew on, a stage in the creek bed required drivers to pick any route they liked, provided they went through the 3 gates. Paul Semmons and Dave Rowlands making it look easy in the GU Patrol. Steve Howarth getting lots of air. He took a pretty straightforward approach to the stage in the GQ Patrol. Manny Cavanteris decided to take a different line to everybody else and quickly found himself stuck. Navigator Tristan Saunders guiding him off the rocks and then into the gully and the waters below. The last stage was a race through the main creek running through the property. Another 5 stages completed, 1 more day to go, and 2 more stages before a winner is decided. It's day 3 of the second round of the Comeup Xtreme Winch Challenge, but you'd be forgiven for thinking it was the extreme sprint run. The final 2 stages were a combined run in the same area as the Saturday morning stages, and there was very little winching to be seen. The competitors kept driving the winch walls, starting with Phil Bell and Ian Hughes in the Toyota, setting a time to beat of 4 minutes 49 seconds over the 2 combined stages.
I didn't want to do anything today, nothing.
Rod Rathbone was struggling in his Land Cruiser. The car wouldn't steer, and it looked like another problem with the front end. But it was actually a steering wheel problem, and it was sorted, but all a bit too late. And with the amount of running needed, Navigator Russell Rathbone was exhausted. Another truck to have problems was the 60 series of Kevin Gorick. They needed to winch one of the hills, but the car stopped and wouldn't start. The battery was flat. A grand plan was hatched. Navigator Josh Rathbone was to use the high lift jack to jumpstart the car off the winch power, but it all went very wrong. Let's see that again in slow motion. Spectacular stuff, but they were out. John Adamson and Mick Weinard in the 60 series were the first to go to the top of the first winch hill without a winch, and set the precedent for those that followed. They did, however, need to winch on the second hill, providing the spectators with a bit of winching action at last. Manny Cafantaris and Tristan Saunders were one of the teams that needed to get the winch rope out more than once. But the second run through, they drove the hill. Good work, team.
Go!
Quickest on the first half of the combined SS9 and SS10 was the 100 series of Stephen Reed and Alex Gordon. But on the second traverse of the main hill, the car got off track, taking out the log and the bunting. The winching needed, combined with the penalty, would be a huge disappointment for the pair. Another team to finish the course without the use of their winch was the Red Undies racing team of Matt Holgate and Isaac James. At the end of the stage, it was all smiles and they'd finished the event in 5th overall. Starting the Sunday stages in third was Steve Howarth and Glenn Rogers in the GQ Patrol. They needed to finish the stage without winching if they wanted to secure a top three. But the first winch hill caught them out, and with the winch rope out, they dropped a position, finishing fourth outright. The speed of Bell and Hughes in the FJ Toyota, though, was enough to bump them up to third place overall from further down the leaderboard, showing that you should never give up at a winch event like this. Without his regular navigator Nathan Mills, who was sitting at home waiting for a baby to be born, Paul Semmons was using navigator and stand-in ranger Dave Rowland. They did their best to drive all the hills, but were another to be caught out on the first winch hill. They drove the rest and were rewarded with second overall.
It. Pressure's on. We'll be giving it a good crack, but
the most spectacular drive and win to date went to the boys in the Mav. Getting the name from the Ford Maverick Day Drive, Pete Bannister and Tim Simpson were flying. Driving every winch hill and looking spectacular over the entire course, this team was on fire. In fact, literally on fire. A power steering hose had broken, and the car came into the final stop gate to awaiting fire extinguishers. A top result that could have easily ended very differently.
Yeah, we got it done, just. Yep.
That's called being on fire.
I think so. We're definitely on fire.
Cold day, Steve. We need to warm up a bit.
So that's it for round 2. We hope to see you at round 3. Make sure you check back here for more videos over the coming weeks.